All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Over the course of 7 decades, Pakistan has essentially been on a continuous quest to find political stability, constantly reinventing its system of government. From its very inception, the history of this nation has been this fascinating, often turbulent story of dramatic ideological shifts. We're going to explore how a single country swung from pure capitalism to sweeping socialism, from military rule to rotating democracies, all while trying to lock down its core identity.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 6 key eras. 1. Birth and initial challenges. 2. Ayub Khan's capitalist era. 3. The 1971 East Pakistan separation. 4. Bhutto's socialism and the 1973 constitution. 5. Zia-ul-Haq and the Afghan War. And finally 6. The modern political era. Let's get to it.
Take a look at this macro timeline. Now, these aren't just dates on a page. They represent total fundamental reboots of a national operating system. I want you to keep this pendulum idea in mind as we explore how power swings back and forth through these pivotal moments in history.
Section 1. Birth and Initial Challenges. The Struggle of a New State.
Achieving independence in 1947, which, by the way, was led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah through a massive constitutional struggle rather than a physical war, was literally just day one. I mean, imagine trying to start a whole country from absolute scratch. There was a complete administrative vacuum in the new capital of Karachi. We're talking barely any government buildings, officials, or infrastructure to speak of. On top of that, an unprecedented 6.5 million refugees crossed the border, needing immediate shelter and medical care. Add to that some intense early water disputes where vital river flows were temporarily halted, immediate security conflicts over Kashmir, and a severe economic crisis because the funds promised from the partition were heavily delayed. It was, for sure, a true trial by fire.
Out of all that early chaos, the new state desperately needed an ideological compass, right? So enter the 1949 Objective Resolution. This is absolutely crucial because it became the guiding preamble for all future constitutions, really attempting to balance liberal and right-wing political visions. It formally declared that sovereignty over the entire universe belongs to Allah, but it mandated that the state would be run through a federal democratic system by the chosen representatives of the people. Plus, it explicitly guaranteed the rights of minorities to freely practice their religions. It was a very delicate but vital compromise.
Section 2. Ayub Khan's capitalist era, the first major pivot.
So, by 1958, after years of political instability and rapid turnovers of prime ministers, General Ayub Khan introduces the first martial law, and with it, a massive economic shift. Now, while this era saw extraordinary industrial and agricultural growth, often called the Green Revolution, it came with a heavy social cost. Ayub Khan's strategy leaned hard into aggressive capitalism. He wanted to empower top industrialists who famously became known as the 200 families. The idea was simple. Give them tax incentives and subsidies to build factories, and they will rapidly create jobs, and honestly, the macroeconomic growth was undeniable. But it concentrated the nation's wealth into the hands of a very small elite, leaving the working class in smaller provinces feeling completely marginalized.
But that growing inequality? It ended up fracturing the very foundation of the state. It leads us to a devastating question. How did a country founded as a unified homeland for Muslims end up tragically tearing itself in two?
That brings us to Section 3, 1971 East Pakistan separation, a nation divided.
The fractures here were incredibly deep. Think about it. Step 1. The two halves of the country were separated by a staggering 1,600 kilometers of Indian territory, and that was compounded by a stark linguistic divide between Urdu and Bengali. Step 2. Feeling economically exploited by West Pakistan, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman proposed his famous 6 points, which demanded extreme provincial autonomy. Step 3 was basically the match in the powder barrel. In the 1970 elections, Mujib's party won a clear majority, but a political deadlock prevented the transfer of power, and that resulted in Step 4, an armed uprising, a devastating military operation supported by India, and a full-scale war in 1971 that ended with East Pakistan becoming the independent nation of Bangladesh.
Section 4. Bhutto's Socialism and the 1973 Constitution. The pendulum swings left.
Talk about ideological whiplash. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto takes power in the remaining western half of the country, and he basically flips the script to address the anger of the working class. On one side, we had Ayub Khan's pure capitalism, on the other, Bhutto's aggressive socialism. Bhutto literally nationalized the exact 20 major industries like iron, steel, and heavy engineering that Ayub Khan had just spent years building up. The overarching goal was to take wealth from the elite and empower the workers. He introduced severe limits on land ownership, taking excess land from wealthy landlords and distributing it to poor farmers, all while rolling out widespread pro-labor laws.
But here's the crucial takeaway from Bhutto's era. Despite all the immense political turbulence and highly controversial economic decisions, his government achieved something historic, a consensus constitution in 1973. It established a bicameral parliament, ensuring equal representation for smaller provinces in the Senate. It cemented a parliamentary democracy, officially declared the state an Islamic republic, and most importantly, it is the fundamental document that still governs the nation today, having survived multiple suspensions and amendments over the decades. Section 5. Zia-ul Haq and the Afghan War, Martial Law and Islamization.
So the narrative arc swings sharply again in 1977. General Zia-ul Haq overthrows Bhutto, completely ditches socialism, and brings in sweeping religious laws to fundamentally restructure the country's legal and social fabric. This included the Hudud Ordinance for Criminal Law, the institutionalization of zakat and ushur, which is basically a system to collect charitable wealth and distribute it to the needy, and the establishment of federal Shariat courts to ensure the nation's laws aligned with Islamic jurisprudence.
But honestly, the defining moment of this entire era actually came from outside Pakistan's borders. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded neighboring Afghanistan. Zia aligned closely with the United States and Saudi Arabia to fight a massive proxy war against the Soviets. Now, while this did bring huge influxes of foreign aid and military equipment, it also resulted in roughly 3.5 million Afghan refugees pouring across the border. To put that into perspective, that staggering number of people profoundly altered Pakistan's own social and economic landscape for decades to come.
Which brings us to Section 6, the modern political era, a rotating democracy.
After Zia dies in a plane crash in 1988, the 1990s turn into this chaotic political ping-pong match. Governance rapidly alternates back and forth between Benazir Bhutto of the PPP, who was the first female prime minister in the Muslim world, and Nawaz Sharif of the PMLN. Benazir navigated complex foreign policy, like the 1988 SAARC summit. Sharif, on the other hand, pushed heavily for infrastructure, initiating the famous motorway networks, reversing Bhutto-era socialism with privatization, and eventually authorizing the 1998 nuclear tests. However, both leaders faced intense political rivalries and constant tensions with the establishment. This led to both of their governments being repeatedly dismissed under Article 58(2)(b) of the Constitution long before they could complete their terms.
And that rapid cycle, it's just kept spinning into the last 20 years. We saw General Pervez Musharraf's 1999 military coup pull the country into the post-9/11 war on terror. Then, by 2008, democracy returned with the PPP passing the landmark 18th Amendment, stripping away dictatorial presidential powers and finally granting deep autonomy to the provinces. 2013 brought massive CPC infrastructure deals under Sharif's government, and in 2018, the pendulum swung to Imran Khan's PTI, which focused heavily on anti-corruption drives and expansive welfare programs like Ehsas. Each era left a distinct, permanent mark on the Constitution and the economy.
So looking back at 73 years of sweeping shifts, from pure capitalism to socialism, from military rule back to democracy, we have to ask ourselves, which system is actually going to bring lasting stability? It's like a giant puzzle, and understanding this historical cycle is absolutely crucial to understanding the nation today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the history that shapes our present.